This is Dr. Rob Harder with the Nonprofit Leadership Podcast, Making Your World Better. What does it take to be an effective nonprofit leader today? What are the biggest challenges? What are the biggest obstacles? How should nonprofits fundraise in an economy that is constantly changing? All of these reasons combined led me to start this show. And it's my hope that through this series, people can learn not only what it takes to be an effective nonprofit organization, but to hear from effective leaders who are successfully making a positive impact in their communities. We hope you enjoy the show, as together we hear how they are making their world better. One of the challenges for an effective nonprofit leader right now is getting the right information so you can make solid financial decisions to help your organization thrive. To do this, you need the best accounting and donation software. Researching, learning, and maintaining software can get really costly. So let me save you some time and money. Aplos just might be the solution you're looking for. Go to nonprofit.aplos.com to see how it works and get your 15-day free trial. As a nonprofit leader, you eventually realize you can't do everything yourself. But hiring is complicated. Volunteers have other demands on their time, and what if you only need part-time help anyway? Well, Belay, an innovative staffing solution, has successfully matched thousands of organizations with part-time virtual assistants, bookkeepers, and social media strategists. Let Belay help you become a more effective and successful nonprofit leader, making a positive impact in the community by helping you juggle less and accomplish more. Just go to Belay, BELAY solutions.com/nonprofit leadership. Well, my original goal for this podcast was to provide a platform for some of the country's and world's best nonprofit leaders and thinkers to share their insights and inspiration with all of you. And along the way, I've also wanted to make sure that we're not forgetting to reach out to these young, emerging nonprofit leaders who really want to invest their lives into making real change in our world. Well, today's guest is one of those young, inspiring, emerging leaders. Her name is Isabella He. She's a high school student, an entrepreneur, and a neurodiversity advocate. I think you're going to be really impressed with all that Isabella is doing, particularly when you realize that she's only a junior in high school. Enjoy today's show. Well, Isabella, thanks so much for being on the show today. You're part of the newest feature of this show, and that is we're seeking to highlight young leaders who are really making a difference in their world. You definitely fit that description. So perhaps you could start out by telling us a bit about yourself and your story.
Yeah, I'm a high school junior at Mission San Jose High School in Fremont, California, and I'm also an entrepreneur. So I founded my own nonprofit organization, AUsome Inclusion, as well as an LLC with my other co-founders, AUsome. And I'm also a volunteer at a local nonprofit organization, Friends of Children with Special Needs, here in the Bay Area, which was founded in 1996. So I'm very passionate about neurodiversity, and all of my efforts are dedicated towards it.
You're doing such good work. I'm really impressed. And you're still a high school student. You're doing all these other things on top of that. So way to go. Now, let's talk about AUsome Inclusion, the organization you have started. What led you to start this, and why is your nonprofit so important for your community?
Yeah, so I actually was inspired to start AUsome Inclusion after I met a software engineer at one of the meetup that I attended for software development. So I was working on an app, and it was another one of the things I was doing. But I attended this meetup and listened to this inspiring software engineer give her speech. And then at the end, when I stayed to ask her more questions, I discovered that she was actually neurodiverse. And she told me then about all of the adversities she faced and kind of how she got started in the employment, and then kind of like the challenges she's faced at all and had to overcome. And that's when I discovered that unemployment rates in individuals with autism spectrum disorder are actually around 85%. So that's when I so that statistic was really shocking to me. And that's what kickstarted my interest in AUsome Inclusion. Yeah. And I was also writing a research paper at the same time on education, career technical education, which is a form of vocational training that's really hands-on. And I was thinking, wow, this would be so useful for individuals with autism spectrum disorder or other neurodiversities. And I kind of just wanted to combine the two things I was thinking of. And that's how SN Inclusion got started.
It's always interesting to find out why people started their nonprofit. Typically it comes out of a personal experience, which sounds like that it did for you. Let's talk more about your organization. Share what makes SN Inclusion so unique among the various resources and other organizations that focus on autism.
Yeah, so one of the defining parts about SN Inclusion is that we collaborate with local businesses in order to create our courses and our videos that are all dedicated towards employment of neurodiverse individuals. So, for example, we partnered with Turtleworks Embroidery. So I worked with their CEO, Sherry Meng, and then we kind of walked through the factory process of what goes behind actually making and being an employee at Turtleworks. So I was able to get that kind of background information on what it takes in order to help an individual with neurodiversity become employed. And also one of the great things is that now students of SN Inclusion are able to also find direct employment opportunities with these local businesses. And one of our other collaborators, Friends Coffee and Tea, is actually operating under FCSN, Friends of Children with Special Needs. So they also directly provide employment opportunities for neurodiverse individuals.
Well, I've also learned that not only did you start SN Inclusion, you're also the co-founder and executive head at AUsome, which is spelled AUsome. Great name, by the way. AUsome makes free at-home therapy kits for children with special needs. So let's talk more about AUsome. What do you provide families?
Yeah, so I am one of the executive heads at AUsome. There are three other executive heads, okay. Anshul Gupta, Arnavs Gurudatt, and Andrew Kim. So we are the co-founders and executive heads, and we're all kind of in charge of our own little area. I'm in like more of the customer understanding. So we have some design, tech. So we all kind of operate with our own strengths. But AUsome is a social enterprise that delivers at-home therapy kits to children with autism spectrum disorder. So it was largely inspired by actually another experience that I had in an internship that I did at Chengdu's Hospital for Women and Children. And then that program was actually for children with autism. And I got to kind of work with the therapists and work with the children there. And they were really young. They were like 2-year-old children. But they kind of, a lot of these parents go to this program. They pay a lot of money to attend this program for around 6 weeks. And it's a wonderful program. But one of the things that I noticed was they then go home and then they have no like continued support. And here in America, we have a little bit of a same issue in that at-home therapy is usually very expensive and not too accessible, and it definitely is not as continuous as it should be. So that's our goal with AUsome in order to provide that continuous at-home therapy.
We'll be right back. I'm excited that Aplos is our featured sponsor for the Nonprofit Leadership Podcast. More than 40,000 nonprofit organizations already trust Aplos to manage finances, people, and giving efforts. It's time to empower your nonprofit with better accounting, stewardship, and financial reporting. Go to nonprofit.aplos.com to see how it works and get your free trial. Hey friends, thanks so much for listening to the podcast. If this is your first time listening to us, I wanted to make sure you're aware of a whole group of other episodes with fascinating guests that I previously interviewed. Just go to our website, nonprofitleadershippodcast.org. There you'll find numerous interviews of nonprofit leaders from all over the country, including some from other countries, all trying to make their world better. So when you go to our website, you can also subscribe to my monthly leadership update in order to get more content, ask me questions, and discover additional information. Just look for the subscribe button on the right-hand side of the webpage. Thanks again for listening. Now back to the show. Nice job. Really impressive, Isabella. Okay, now I'm curious, what have been some of your biggest surprises as you have launched both SN Inclusion and AUsome?
Yeah, I would say one of the most surprising things that I encountered was just the overwhelming support from people in the field who are so established. I reached out to some experts in the field, so really developed like directors of their employment at big centers for autism, such as Teach, I reached out to some advocates, like some employees of Amazon and directors of Microsoft's neurodiverse employment program. And they were so willing to talk to, a high school student looking to make an impact on this field. And I got a lot of insight from these experts, as well as my local nonprofit leaders. And I also interviewed dozens of neurodiverse employees to get their behind the scene takes on it. So just the overwhelming support and willingness to help from all these different kind of stakeholders was something that was really shocking to me and really helped kickstart my beginning with all of my organizations.
Well, it sounds like you've done a lot of research, which has continued to lend more support to your efforts. Okay, so for those who are listening, whether they be high schoolers like you or they're parents of high schoolers, I'm curious, what advice would you give to other high school leaders as to how they could start their own nonprofit based on your experience?
Yeah, so I definitely started with just a mission. Like I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. I actually formed the LLC of S and Inclusion before coming up with exactly what I was going to do, which I wouldn't necessarily recommend. But I definitely just kind of started off with what I wanted to do and a mission, and then discovered exactly what I was going to do after that. So one of the first things that I did once I got more knowledge onto how to properly do things is the market research that I did. So reaching out to experts and really understanding the market that I was trying to get into and the people that I was trying to help. So that was one of the best, I think, things that I did in terms of knowing what is necessary, knowing what is needed, and then trying to make what we offer accommodate those needs. Another piece of advice I would say is the team that I work with. So especially with AUsome, with my 3 other co-founders, it's been really great learning experience, learning from all of my other co-founders, all of their experiences, and collaborating and working like as a team in order to develop our product and develop our outreach. So that's one of definitely the best things, because I get to work with other passionate individuals and learn from them along the way.
Well, excellent. All right, one last question. My podcast is dedicated to leaders, specifically nonprofit leaders. And it's obvious to me that while you are young, you already have some excellent leadership qualities. So in your opinion, what is the most important characteristic of leadership?
Yeah, I would say one of the things that I do as in leadership, even not directly related to my own efforts with my nonprofit, is FCSN. So at FCSN, I have led the formation of 10 other clubs. So I started the first FCSN club at my high school, MSJ FCSN Special Needs Club. And I worked with the FCSN directors in order to kind of found and kickstart the program to start other FCSN clubs. So I've since mentored other young leaders to form 10 to 12 FCSN clubs at other high schools, such as Washington High School and other high schools around the Bay Area, and also UC Davis, so colleges as well. So one of the great things about the kind of the leadership skills I gained through that is the ability to understand the teammates that I'm working with and understand everybody's strengths and also where they're struggling. So one of the things with club formation is the big presentation at the end. So a couple of the clubs face a couple rounds of rejection, which also comes with everything with efforts as well. With S and Inclusion and AUsome, we also faced lots of rejection and intimidating speakers and things like that weren't necessarily 100% on board with our idea. But we had to learn to just know when our idea was good and know when we had to have confidence in our idea, and then also kind of give your team that confidence as well, confidence in your vision, and then know the milestones that we have to hit in order to meet our vision.
Well, that's great advice, Isabella, for all of my listeners, especially those who may just need an extra boost of motivation to grow in their leadership. So thanks again for being on the show and sharing your insights with us. As I mentioned now to my listeners, I look forward to having more emerging leaders just like Isabella to share with you their insights as to what they're doing, even at a very young age. Now, Isabella, how can people find out more about you and more about your work? Where would you send them?
Yeah, so definitely to our website. S and Inclusion is www.sandinclusion.org. AUsome is www.auesome.co. And then to learn more about me, I would say just kind of go on these sites, and I have my bio, and I'm welcome any and all outreach. So feel free to email me at isabella@sandinclusion.org, and I'm happy to answer any questions and offer any advice that I can.
Well, Isabella, thanks again for your time today. And thanks for all you're doing through your school and through your organizations. You have a very bright future. Keep up the great work.
Thank you.
Hey friends, I wanted you to know that this podcast can be found on both iTunes and Spotify. If you're wondering how to find it, just type in the words Nonprofit Leadership Podcast and this podcast should show up. We also encourage you, when you go on iTunes, let us know what you think. Give us a review. Give us a rating. We would love to hear what you think of this podcast, and your feedback will help expand this podcast to get it out to as many people as possible. You can also find other resources and interviews of past guests on my website, nonprofitleadershippodcast.org. Again, that website is nonprofitleadershippodcast.org. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, keep making your world better. What's unique about AUsome is that they are dedicated not only to providing you with the best tools, but also to offering free training from their in-house experts and CPAs. Right now, you can get access to a solid webinar on 5 essential financial reports for nonprofit leaders. To get access, go to nonprofit.applos.com.